First Contact Protocol. The crystalline chambers of the Zephyrian High Command had never hosted such an emergency session. Admiral Kekstar floated in his biosuit, his 6 arms gesticulating wildly as holographic displays showed impossible readings. From Sector 7742, the translucent blue beings that made up the Zephyrian Council had been the dominant force in this galaxy for over 50,000 years. And nothing had ever rattled them quite like this. Impossible, whispered Councillor Murthak, her voice creating ripples in the liquid atmosphere. The radiation levels from that star should sterilize any rocky planet in the habitable zone. High Councillor Vexith, ancient even by Zephyrian standards, remained silent as the data streamed across his consciousness. He had lived through the discovery of 17 different sapient species, had overseen first contact protocols that brought peace and prosperity to countless worlds. But this was different. The planet designated as Terra by its inhabitants spun slowly in the holographic display. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with brown and green landmasses scattered across it like infected wounds. But it was the readings that defied all logic. Not only was the planet teeming with life, but it supported a technologically advanced civilization that had somehow thrived on what the Zephyrians classified as a Class 12 death world. Their star emits dangerous radiation across multiple spectrums, reported Science Coordinator Yelanara, her tentacles dancing across data streams. The planet's magnetic field is inconsistent. The atmosphere is 21% oxygen, which should create constant firestorms. The gravity is triple what most sapient species can tolerate. And yet, she paused, her bioluminescent patches flickering with confusion. And yet they have cities, millions of them. They've split the atom. They've launched primitive vessels beyond their atmosphere. They're actively trying to contact other worlds. Admiral Kekstar's combat instincts, honed over centuries of military service, sent warning signals through his nervous system. Any species that could not only survive but thrive on such a hostile world posed a potential threat that the galaxy had never seen before. "We need reconnaissance," he declared. "Deploy the Phantom drones. Full spectrum analysis, but maintain a minimum distance of 3 stellar units. If they're as dangerous as their world suggests, we cannot risk direct contact." The Phantom drones were masterpieces of Zephyrian technology, invisible to most detection methods and capable of gathering comprehensive data from impossible distances. Within hours, they were transmitting images that left the entire council speechless. The beings that called themselves humans were unlike anything in the galactic database. They stood upright on 2 legs, used only 2 arms for manipulation, and had no apparent psionic abilities. They looked fragile, almost delicate, with their soft skin and limited sensory organs. But the more the drones observed, the more terrifying they became. These humans had not just adapted to their death world, they had conquered it. They had built structures that reached toward the sky, created transportation networks that spanned continents, and developed communication systems that connected their entire species in real. Most shocking of all, they did this without any apparent hive mind or collective consciousness. Somehow, billions of individual minds were working together, with a coordination that put even the most advanced species to shame. Dr. Sarah Chen was working late in her laboratory at the Arecibo Observatory when her equipment started, registering readings that shouldn't exist. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had spent her entire career preparing for this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was seeing. "Marcus, you need to get down here now," she called her old friend Captain Marcus Reed, who commanded the Joint Military Science Division. "We're not alone." When Reed arrived 30 minutes later, Chen had isolated the source of the anomalous readings. Something was watching them from high orbit, something that was trying very hard not to be seen. The electromagnetic signatures are unlike anything in our database, Chen explained, her fingers flying across her tablet. The materials, the energy patterns, even the way it moves through space. This is definitely not human technology. Reed studied the data with the analytical mind that had made him one of the military's top strategists. How long have they been watching us? Best guess, about 6 hours. But Marcus, here's the really interesting part. They're not just observing us randomly. They're conducting systematic scans of our major population centers, our infrastructure, our military installations. This is reconnaissance. The implications hit Red like a physical blow. An unknown alien intelligence was surveying Earth, gathering intelligence on human civilization. In military terms, this was either the prelude to invasion or the most important diplomatic opportunity in human history. We need to capture one of those drones, Reed decided. If they're studying us, it's time we return to the favor. The plan was simpler than either of them expected. Using modified weather balloons equipped with electromagnetic pulse devices, they managed to disable one of the Phantom drones and bring it down in the Nevada desert. What they found inside changed everything. The technology was centuries ahead of anything humans had developed, but it followed principles that Chen could understand. More importantly, much of the information stored in the drone's databanks was in formats that her computers could decode with some effort. Within days, Chun's team had not only confirmed that Earth was under observation by an advanced alien civilization, but they had also begun to understand the basics of the technology being used to watch them. The aliens used something called quantum fold transmission for faster-than-light communication, manipulated gravitational fields for propulsion, and had developed materials that could exist in multiple phases simultaneously. But it was the intelligence, reports that truly shocked them. The aliens, who called themselves Zephyrians, had been monitoring hundreds of worlds across the galaxy. Earth was just the latest in their survey, but the data suggested that the Zephyrians were not conquerors. They were explorers, scientists, diplomats, seeking to make contact with other intelligent species. They're as curious about us as we are. About them, Chen realized, but they're afraid. The fear was evident in the classified communications they had intercepted. The Zephyrians were debating whether humans represented a threat that needed to be contained or an opportunity for unprecedented scientific collaboration. The debates seemed to center on one crucial factor that humans had never considered about themselves. Earth was not just hostile to alien life, it was hostile to all life. The fact that humans had not merely survived but had built a thriving global civilization on such a dangerous planet marked them as something the galaxy had never seen before. In Zephyrian classification systems, humans were not just another sapient species. They were apex predators from a death world, and that made them potentially the most dangerous beings in the known galaxy. Admiral Kekstar was reviewing the latest intelligence reports when his aide, Lieutenant Zarkan, brought disturbing news. "Sir, we've lost contact with reconnaissance drone 7. It disappeared from our sensors approximately 6 hours ago." The Admiral's biosuit constricted with tension. "Equipment failure. Unknown, sir. But Drone 9 has detected unusual electromagnetic activity on the planet's surface. It appears the inhabitants are attempting to reverse engineer our technology." The silence in the command chamber was profound. In 50,000 years of galactic exploration, no primitive species had ever been able to detect Zephyrian reconnaissance technology, much less capture and analyze it. High Counselor Vexith finally spoke, his ancient voice carrying the weight of eons. I have seen this before. Long ago, in the Andorian sector, we encountered a species that lived on a world of ice and storms. They were primitive, barely beyond stone tools, but they adapted to everything we tried. Within a generation, they had learned to use our own weapons against us. The war lasted 300 years. Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Helenara, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's on multiple frequencies, in several different languages. They're trying to contact us. The message was simple. BROADCAST in mathematics and basic physics concepts that any spacefaring civilization would understand. But what made it remarkable was not just that humans had figured out how to contact their observers, but that they had done it using principles they had learnt from studying Zephyrian technology. This is Earth calling unknown observers, came the translated message. We know you're there. We know you've been watching us. We're not hostile, but we're also not afraid. We want to talk. The boldness of it was staggering. A species that had just discovered they were not alone in the universe was already making demands for communication. Worse, they had demonstrated the ability to learn and adapt alien technology in a matter of days. Admiral Kekstar turned to his council. We have a decision to make. We can withdraw and recommend that this system be quarantined indefinitely, or we can initiate contact protocols and hope that a species capable of thriving on a death world is also capable of civilized discourse. High Counselor Vexith studied the planetary data one more time. Look at their cities, Kekstar. Look at their transportation networks, their communication systems. This isn't the work of a unified species or a hive mind. This is billions of individuals choosing to work together. They've turned their entire planet into a cooperative venture. Is that good news or bad news? Asked the Admiral. That, replied the High Counselor, is what we're about to find out. Asterisk, billions rise. The Zephyrian Council chamber had been reconfigured for maximum security, with additional shielding and backup power systems activated. What had begun as a routine first contact scenario had evolved into something that threatened to reshape galactic civilization. The humans of Terra had not just responded to the Zephyrians' presence. They had launched what could only be described as the fastest technological revolution in recorded galactic history. General Lisa Torres stood in the newly constructed mission control center in Colorado Springs, watching real-time feeds from humanity's first interstellar monitoring stations. In just 3 months since capturing the Zephyrian drone, human civilization had undergone changes that most species required centuries to achieve. Way, give me the status report on Project Breakthrough, Torres called to the young engineer who had become humanity's leading expert on alien technology. Engineer Wei Zhong looked up from his workstation, his eyes bright with the fervor of someone who had spent 3 months straight revolutionizing physics. General, we've successfully revealed the quantum fold communication system. We're now maintaining real-time contact with our orbital platforms using their own technology. But that's not the impressive part. Zhong gestured to a series of displays showing technical schematics that would have seemed like magic to human scientists just months earlier. We figured out their gravitational manipulation systems. Not just how to use them, but how to improve them. The silence in the room was profound. Ambassador Daviji Okafor, who had been preparing for humanity's first official contact with an alien species, felt his diplomatic strategies shifting by the hour. Improve them, Torres asked quietly. Human manufacturing techniques. It turns out, are more advanced than theirs in some key areas, Zhong explained. They've been spacefaring for thousands of years, but they've been using essentially the same technology that whole time. They've perfected it, refined it, but they haven't innovated. We've been innovating for our entire existence. On his workstation, Zhong brought up a comparison between the original Zephyrian gravitational drive and the human modification. The human version was not only more efficient, it was smaller, more reliable, and required fewer exotic materials to construct. General Interrupted Communications Specialist Alina Rodriguez were receiving another transmission from the alien fleet. They're requesting permission to approach. Torres studied the message carefully. After months of tense standoff, with neither side making direct contact, the aliens were finally ready to talk. But the tactical situation had changed dramatically since their first tentative communications. Zhang, how many ships do we have capable of interstellar flight? As of this morning, 14. We'll have 30 more completed within the week. Ambassador Okafor stepped forward. General, with respect, we need to be careful about how we proceed. These beings have been spacefaring for millennia. They have technologies we're only beginning to understand. Starting an arms race is not in humanity's best interests. David, Torres replied, I don't think we started anything. I think we finished something that began the moment they decided to study us like laboratory animals instead of approaching us as equals. Aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Kekstar was experiencing something unprecedented in his long military career: strategic uncertainty. His tactical computers had been running continuous analyses of the human response to first contact, and every projection showed the same terrifying conclusion. They're not just adapting our technology, reported Science Coordinator Yelanara, her bioluminescent patches flickering with barely contained panic. They're improving it. Their manufacturing capabilities, their materials science, their integration protocols. Admiral, in 3 months they've advanced from primitive spaceflight to interstellar capability. The holographic display showed Earth's orbital infrastructure, which had expanded exponentially since first contact. Humans had not only built monitoring stations and communication relays, they had constructed manufacturing platforms that were producing spacecraft at an impossible rate. How many ships do they have now? Admiral Kekstar asked. 14 confirmed interstellar-capable vessels, with more under construction. But Admiral, that's not the alarming part. Yelanara manipulated the display to show the technical specifications. The Zephyrians had managed to scan from the human vessels. Their ships are better than ours. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle hum of the life support systems. In 50,000 years of galactic exploration, the Zephyrians had never encountered a species that could match their technology, much less exceed it. High Counselor Vexith activated his personal communication system, his ancient voice carrying across all Zephyrian frequencies. All ships maintain current positions but prepare for emergency withdrawal. We may be dealing with a threat beyond our current capabilities. Lieutenant Zarkon interrupted from his sensor station. Sir, we're detecting multiple human vessels approaching our position. They're not displaying any hostile intent, but they're maintaining combat formations. Admiral Kekstar's worst fears were being realized. The humans were not content to remain on their death world, learning from captured technology. They were coming to meet their observers, and they were coming in force. Admiral, came a transmission in perfect Zephyrian dialect. This is General Torres of the Earth Defense Coalition. We request permission to approach for diplomatic negotiations. We come in peace, but we come prepared. The fact that humans had learned to speak Zephyrian in 3 months was impressive. The fact that they had done it well enough to convey subtle diplomatic meanings was terrifying. General Torres watched the alien fleet through her flagship's viewscreen, marveling at the elegant design of ships that had been crossing interstellar space since before human civilization began. But she was also calculating firing solutions, defensive positions, and tactical advantages with the mind of someone who had spent her career preparing for the impossible. "Ambassador Okafor, you're up," she said. "But remember, we're not supplicants here. We're equals, and they need to understand that." The first face-to-face meeting between humans and Zephyrians took place aboard Torres' flagship, in a conference room that had been hastily modified to accommodate beings who breathed liquid atmosphere. The technology for the meeting had been adapted from Zephyrian designs, but improved with human engineering principles. Admiral Kekstar entered the meeting chamber in a specialized biosuit that allowed him to exist in the human ship's atmosphere. He had expected to encounter primitive beings who would be awed by superior alien technology. Instead, he found himself facing humans who had not only mastered that technology, but had refined it beyond his own civilization's capabilities. "Admiral Ambassador Okafor began, we appreciate you agreeing to this meeting. We understand that our rapid technological advancement may have been ... unexpected." Kekstar's translation systems struggled with human diplomatic language, but the meaning was clear enough. These beings were offering him an opportunity to save face, while acknowledging their own superiority. "Your species has achieved in months what most civilizations require centuries to accomplish." Kekstar replied carefully. "How is this possible?" General Torres leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, you've been thinking about this wrong from the beginning. You've been studying us as a unified species, like most of the beings you've encountered. But we're not a species. We're billions of individuals who've learned to work together." Kekstar's biosuit registered confusion. "I don't understand the distinction." "When your people develop technology, you do it as a collective consciousness. You achieve perfection, then you maintain it. When humans develop technology, we do it competitively. Every advancement leads to 10 more advancements. Every solution creates new problems that need solving. We've been innovating for our entire existence because innovation is what we do." Ambassador Okafor activated a holographic display showing human technological development over the past century. "Admiral, we went from horse-drawn carriages to interstellar flight in less than 100 years. We split the atom 40 years. After we learned to fly, we mapped our own genome before we learned to leave our home world. Rapid advancement isn't unusual for us. It's the only thing we know how to do." The implications were staggering. The Zephyrians had encountered a species that didn't just adapt to their environment, they continuously transformed it. Humans weren't just dangerous because they came from a death world. They were dangerous because they never stopped improving everything around them. "What do you want from us?" Admiral Kekstar asked. General Torres smiled, a human expression that the translation systems interpreted as both friendly and predatory. "We want to be your partners, Admiral. We want to explore the galaxy, meet other species, share knowledge, and solve problems together. But we want to do it as equals. And if we refuse, then we explore the galaxy without you," Torres replied simply. "Admiral, you've been watching us for months. You know what we're capable of. You know how fast we learn, how quickly we adapt, how effectively we cooperate when we need to. You can either be part of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, or you can watch it happen." High Counselor Vexith had been monitoring the negotiations from his flagship, and his analysis was complete. The humans represented a paradigm shift that would reshape galactic civilization. They could be contained, perhaps, but the cost would be enormous. They could be fought, but victory was uncertain at best. Or they could be embraced as partners in the greatest expansion of knowledge and capability the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Kexter Vexith transmitted, "Accept their proposal. Make them our allies. Because if we don't, in 10 years, they'll be our equals. In 50 years, they'll be our superiors. And in 100 years, they'll be the dominant species in the galaxy whether we like it or not." The treaty negotiations took 17 days, but they resulted in the Terran Accords, the first agreement between humans and an interstellar civilization. Under the terms, humanity would be granted full membership in the Galactic Council, access to established trade routes and diplomatic networks, and the opportunity to establish colonies throughout the galaxy. In exchange, humans would share their technological innovations, their manufacturing techniques, and their problem-solving methodologies with other member species. Most importantly, they would serve as the galaxy's rapid response team for technological challenges, natural disasters, and species conflicts that required innovative solutions. As General Torres signed the accords aboard the Zephyrian flagship, she thought about the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. From a small blue world that the galaxy had considered uninhabitable to partners in an interstellar civilization. All because humans had learned long ago that the only constant in the universe was change, and the only way to survive change was to embrace it. "Welcome to the galaxy, Hinadal Taurus," Admiral Kextar said, through his translator. "Thank you, Admiral," Torres replied. "We're looking forward to showing you what 8 billion human minds can accomplish when they work together." In his private chambers, High Counselor Vexith was already reviewing preliminary reports from human colonies that were being established throughout the galaxy. In just the few months since the Terran Accords were signed, human innovations were transforming everything from agricultural techniques to starship design. Other species were learning to adapt human methodologies, and the rate of galactic technological advancement was accelerating exponentially. The galaxy would never be the same, and Vexith, despite his initial concerns, was beginning to think that was the best thing that had ever happened to it.